Hello everybody and welcome to the United Stand. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer out, Glazer in, out, Woodward in, out. Look, the reality is I think we've all had time now to think about the situation at Manchester United, and I've got a few things I'm going to work through, and then at the end of the video I'm basically going to arrive at where I think Manchester United should go forward, because we've all got our own opinions and I think that's really important. I think whatever you think about ex-players, what they're saying, you're saying, other fans are saying, players are saying, I think, you've got to respect it, because United fans are going to have different opinions. But look, let's start off with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. What I would say is, one of the key things that I think is important is, if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was not an ex-legend of the club who'd scored that goal in '99, what would you think about him? If he'd a manager that had been brought in, no connection to the club, what would you think about now? And I think 100% we'd all be saying, get rid of him, he's not good enough. And that doesn't mean we get rid of him, and that doesn't mean we're Ole out, but I think if you take away the connection to Manchester United Football Club and judge him as a manager, you would go failed at Cardiff, playing a crap system, clearly out of his depth, lost control of the players, gotta go. Sad, but gotta go. The thing that's keeping him here, and the thing that's keeping him in the conversation, probably quite rightly, is the fact that he is an ex-legend of the club and we all love that man. And that is why he is still here. Not because of his coaching style. He's blown that. And that's down to the appointment of the board. What I would also say as well is, this is the worst set of players we've had in my life. Worst, I don't know whether it's worse than the 70s because I wasn't alive. It's the worst squad Manchester United have ever had. It's the worst board we've ever had. And it's the most inexperienced coaching staff we've ever had. How the hell is that a recipe for success? Worst set of players, worst board, inexperienced coaching staff. It doesn't take a bloody rocket scientist to realise that is the combination for disaster, and it's going to get worse. The players aren't good enough, the board are inept, and the coaching staff is massively inexperienced. From top to bottom, that club has no leadership. It's got no knowledge, and it desperately, desperately needs it. Now, how you change that at this point, we'll get into that. But the point remains that a lot of people will stick by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer because they will say that the board are to blame. I've seen ex-players coming out with it in the last few hours. What I would say to those ex-players is, you're right. It's good that is now part of the public message, that we've now got ex-players with a lot of credibility coming out and blaming the board. But they're also still being very quiet about people like Jesse Lingard, Marcus Rashford, who, again, if we'd bought those players from, I don't know, Brazil or Portugal, they would be being slated. But because they've come through the youth setup and they've known them since they were kids, they get away with it. They should be part of the conversation. Their tactics, the system, they should be part of the situation. And look, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's not going to be sacked this morning. We'll get to that in a moment. But I would have him in this morning. If I was Ed Woodward, I would have him in this morning. And I've said this 2 or 3 times now. I would have him in this morning and I would say, what are you doing? I gave you the job based on a bloody chant on the terraces. Ollie's at the wheel. I gave you that job based on exciting football. You spoke about the United way. What are you doing? You're a very, very poor man's version of Mourinho at the moment. You're playing 2 holding midfielders. You could not create a chance in a brothel. What are you doing? You're bloody 1-0 down to Newcastle with 15 minutes to go and you create nothing. You talk about people getting in the box, but you're creating nothing. What did I give you the job for? Do you want this job? Go back to why I gave you this job, or you are gone. That conversation needs to be had. It won't be had because the club from top to bottom is apathetic. We've got a vision and we're working towards it. And that is a conversation that needs to have. But the problem is, Ed Woodward, whoever else you want to name on that Manchester United board who actually make day-to-day decisions, Sir Alex Ferguson, Sir Bobby Charlton, they're on the board. They're not making day-to-day decisions. They are bloody ambassadors of the club, really. They don't make the decisions. The people making the decisions have got about as much knowledge as your pet dog. And a lot of you won't even have a dog. So there's your answer. About football, they don't have the knowledge. They're businessmen. They don't even probably support the club. And they don't have the knowledge you have as Manchester United fans of football. And yet they make the decisions about signing players, sacking managers, recruiting managers. That's the problem. The director of football is the golden ticket. But we're not going to do it. We've bloody mugged fans off for a year. We won't do that. So we'll come back to that in a moment as well. But let's stick on Ole for a moment because there are issues. We are going to get worse. I don't think we're going to lose to Liverpool. I think we'll park the bus. We might get a draw out of it. Defensively, we could do that. I don't see how people like Marcus Rashford are going to score against their defence. But We might get a draw in that, but things will get worse because people are... I mean, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has said we're missing 6 players from the Chelsea game. Go back and check the United Stand fan cams from that game, and everybody said, very good result, very clinical, but actually it flattered us. We didn't play that well. We hit them on the break. Chelsea with a better footballing side. Look a few weeks later, after 8 games, Chelsea are miles ahead of us because we saw Lampard on the opening game of the season. He had a philosophy, he had a way of playing, and we didn't. We were counter-attacking. And what you get with a counter-attacking team is a blueprint. Teams like Newcastle and Norwich and Bournemouth and Sheffield United and every other team in the bottom half of the table have got a golden ticket to 3 points against Manchester United. Because if you watch Newcastle yesterday, they don't have decent players, but when United get the ball, all you've got to do is sprint for 2 seconds to get back into position, then have a rest. Because United will not move the ball quick. And if you get back in position, you can have a rest while they go side to side, backwards, side to side, pass it forward and lose possession. And then you hit on the attack. It's an energy game. It's basically shuttle runs for the opposition. When they've got the ball, quickly run back into position, have a rest. When we get the ball, shuttle run forward, put your energy in, try and get a goal. They get it back, quickly back into position, have a rest. It's a blueprint to success. We beat Chelsea because Chelsea came to Old Trafford and thought, Old Trafford, United are going to play football. And we did what Ollie wants to do in every game, sit back and hit teams on the break. But when teams know that's your only tactic, it's very easy to deal with it, especially the bottom half teams, because United can't really park the bus against those teams. They've got to try and create chances. But it was so easy to play against. And the better teams know that as well now. They do. And we're ultimately, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's tactics this season and the end of last season have been League 2 standard. You've got teams like Rochdale, Newcastle outrunning Manchester United. And what about all this nonsense in the summer? Oh, I'm going to get them working really hard. I'm going to get their fitness levels up. We're going to press. We're going to be all over teams the United way. They're knackered. Everybody's picking up muscle injuries. Everybody's bloody knackered and being outrun by Newcastle and Rochdale, and we've only been playing the season for 8 weeks. I don't know what went wrong in the summer, but to me it looks like he's absolutely beasted them on an old bloody way of training. You know, it's like what they used to do 40 years ago. Have the summer off, get down Blackpool, have a few ice creams and a few pints of ale, and then in July we're just going to do loads and loads of running, and then you're going to be really fit. And that's not... You've got to pace yourself for the season, and we're way off. We're absolutely way off in relation to fitness. And tactical setup it's non-existent. It's non-existent, and these are issues. As I said, whether you're Ollie in or Ollie out, you've got to look at what Manchester United do right now. And the problem is, you should always work through and find a solution. And I think at this point you'd be going, right, the manager's out of his depth. He's tactically getting it wrong. What about the players? What about the players before we go to the board? Well, these players have played under 3 or 4 managers, some of them. The problem is, they're not stupid. Some of them are, but they're not really stupid. They will read in the media. They will look at what's being said about the board, what's being said about the coaching staff. These players have been there when 2 or 3 managers have been sacked. Certainly at least 2 with Mourinho and Van Gaal, a lot of them. The modern footballer in a stereotypical way is very self-absorbed. They will not want to put the focus onto themselves. They will back the manager, but they'll also be looking for excuses as well. And the excuse is there. You've got loads of people out there, fans, pundits, the mainstream media. They're saying Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is a questionable manager. Is he up to the task? The minute the players start thinking that, you've got a problem. Do they respect the manager? Do they respect the coaching staff? Michael Carrick was a brilliant footballer. He's one of the main coaches at Manchester United. Was he a leader? No, not really. Is he a leader in relation to coaching staff, or is he just a respected person within the club? The same with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the same with Mike Phelan, the same with McKenna. There is no experienced leader there. I mean, Mike Phelan has been there since Sir Alex Ferguson, but if you're saying Mourinho's past it because football's moved on, then surely you've got to say the same about Mike Phelan. He was an assistant manager years ago. What is he in relation to the modern game when we're playing 2 holding midfielders and a style of football that really is disgraceful from a Manchester United point of view? So I think that the players are going to start having conversations, and lack of trust in the manager, which is also a slippery slope, which no one talks about. Of course, the players are culpable. The recruitment is terrible. I keep hearing about Jose Mourinho, but the reality is Fred is a player we all wanted to be given a chance. I think ultimately he is looking like a flop, and that is not Ollie's fault. He didn't buy him. Jose Mourinho did. We bought Fred because Man City were interested. I actually think Fred in Man City's system would be a better player. The ball moves quicker, players move quicker. We're static. As a football team, it's static. You can have a go at McTominay, you can have a go at Matic, Fred, Pereira, Pogba, but the point is, when they get the ball in the midfield, the movement ahead of them is poor. Like, they're not finding the spaces. They're not finding the spaces to find a pass forward. And we keep saying, oh, you know, Rashford starved of oxygen, Dan James, Mata, Pereira, they're not getting enough of the ball. But they're not moving to get the ball. Mata can come and get the ball in the centre circle. But how's about taking up a position 10 yards off the penalty box and having the ball there? Nobody's making those positions for people like Fred and McTominay to find the passers. And this is the problem. When you go through that team, Dalot looks like he could be decent. We bought him injured, and he's pretty much injured all the time. Another crap recruited injured player. You look at Pereira, you look at Fred, you look at Dalot, like I say, you look at Lingard, you look at Rashford, even possibly McTominay. They're probably all bench players in a top 4 side. You've then got players that shouldn't even be here, like Phil Jones, Juan Mata, Nemanja Matic, Ashley Young. There is too many players at that club who are not good enough. That is an issue. Whether you don't like the manager, whether you don't like the board, there are too many players at that football club who are not good enough as well. And this is what I'm coming back to. There is a multi-layered problem at Manchester United. It's a shit pie. There are layers to it. There is issues with the coaching, inexperienced and might not be good enough. There are issues with the players, not good enough. And there is issues with the board who are making the decisions who are not good enough. And how do you solve that as a fan? You don't solve that as a fan, because we don't have the power to do that. You've got Glazers sat in America earning their coin with Woodward, the man who helped them buy the club, who they adore. You've got Woodward and his team who absolutely make all the decisions. What I get from Manchester United at the moment is this. We're not going to sack the manager. We believe in the vision. Well, the vision's blurred. We are clearly not going to sack ourselves because we're in charge. And we actually don't really want to spend that much money anyway. And we believe in a lot of these players who just aren't good enough. That is not a vision. That is going to get worse. How do we change that as fans? You just got to be vocal in whatever you think. You've got to be vocal in whatever you think, and that's the bottom line, isn't it? But what I would say is this. If I could make a change at Manchester United right now, if I had a magic wand, I'd go back to what I've said before. A director of football brought into the club who's got nothing to do with Manchester United. I don't want an ex-player. There's only one ex-player that might be able to do the job, and that's Van der Sar, because he's got experience. I don't want Evra. I don't want Ferdinand. I love them as ex-players, but I want the best director of football we can get. The best in the world. I don't care whether they're in Brazil, India, Australia, Europe, whatever. The best director of football we can get should be brought in now. That's the first job that should be done. And that director of football should have a massive say on recruitment, selling of players and the manager. You bring that position in, then you build from that. That position isn't to get out a jail card for his fans. That's the job that needs to be done. Take Woodward away from footballing decisions and have a director of football in who is totally accountable. And then if they get it wrong, 2 or 3 years, they go. But director of football comes in, they walk in and they go, get rid of Jones, get rid of Young, get rid of Matic, get rid of Mata for a start. Lingard, you're on your last chance. Rashford the same. I want Bruno Fernandes, I want Ndidi, I want a decent striker like Timo Werner, and we'll do everything we can to get Jadon Sancho. Those 4 in the next 2 transfer windows, right? So that's good recruitment and good getting rid of players. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, come into my office. Right, I'm going to give you 2 months. 2 months to go back to why you got the job, and if you don't do it, you're gone. Simple question, simple answer. Are you going to do it? No, I'm not going to do it. Right, you're gone now then. There's no point. Because I want to buy players in January, and the reality is, if I wait till January and give you... And this is the big danger. We won't get this hypothetical director of football either way, even though that's the thing to do. If you sack the manager, you've still got Woodward. If you sack Woodward, it's never going to happen. If you get rid of the players, you've still got Woodward and Ollie buying them. So you need something bringing into that club that's going to change the whole thing. There's no leadership at the top and there's no knowledge. The players are bottlers and the manager is inexperienced. Some leadership has got to come in there. And a leader captain doesn't exist, but they'd still be undermined by the manager and Woodward. So it's got to be a director of football, and it's got to be a very powerful director of football who has got total and utter control of that situation. That's what I would do at Manchester United. Will they do it? I don't think they would. But that director of football has to be in now. They had to be in 6 months ago. They have to be in now. And on top of that, they must be given total control of recruitment and the manager situation. Because with the manager situation, what I want to say is, anybody who's Ollie in, you're stuck with this mistake. You're stuck with this mistake for a long time because they're going to give him money in January. And if he's the wrong man, they're giving him money in January to spend. And that is a waste of money if it's the wrong person. He might bring Mandzukic in, Callum Wilson in. He might bring a load of crap in. And then you've spent money and you've got to give him another 6 months to bed the new signings in. Whatever decision we're going to make on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and I haven't even... Well, I will make my decision at the end of this video. Whatever decision we're going to make, we can't wait till January to make it. He will get money in January. If a new manager's coming in, they need to be in right now. Right now. No question about it. I'm going to lose my battery here if I'm not careful. They need to come in right now. Right now. If there's going to be a new manager, they need to come in right now because they need to say, I want this in January. The reality is this board are going to stick stubbornly with this situation. They are going to stick with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. They are going to give him money in January. They are going to stick with themselves making decisions, and they're going to stick with this playing staff. And that is wrong, wrong, wrong. It's too long. 6 years of bullshit. 6 years of mistakes. 6 years of we're going to get it right now. Only 2 weeks ago in the shareholders meeting, they were like, we're finally getting it right in relation to the transfer window. We're happy with what we've done and this is what we're going to do in the future. That was not a good transfer window. Dan James is a player that should not be starting every game, but he's our most important player. He should be being bedded in. He's got great potential, but he should be getting a game off, a game in, a game off. Same with Scott McTominay. Sometimes he's brilliant. Sometimes against Newcastle, not so good. He is a player that should be getting gradually moved in. These are players who are having to play and have the shoulder of Manchester United on their bloody shoulders. They're carrying too much weight. It's not fair. And last summer wasn't a good window, but they think it was. Every year it's the same. Every year it's the same. We know what we're doing now. We've got a vision. We are going to get worse. If this situation continues, and that's my fear, same coaching staff, same players, same board, it's going to get worse. Something's got to change for me, the director of football, but I do not think this club will do it. And I would implore everybody to just go vocal with whatever it is that you want and start putting some pressure onto Manchester United Football Club because they do not listen to the fans. They think they're better than you. They think they know what they're doing. And as I've said, that board does not know anything about football and they are running the biggest club in the world and they are sinking us down further and further and further and it's going to get worse. To me, do you sack Ole Gunnar Solskjaer now? He probably isn't the right man. He probably isn't the right man. But sacking him now would be, pissing in a puddle when you need to be pissing in the ocean. Like, it really would. It would. He probably does need the sack, but it's not the first thing that needs to be done. He does, I don't disagree with the fact the tactics are terrible. If he wasn't a legend, we'd want rid of him. He looks out of his depth. He's probably losing the players. But in the short term, that's not going to solve the long term. The long term is get a director of football in, get ownership into that football club if possible, who knows what they're doing. Because they probably will come in and sack Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But Woodward cannot sack Ole Gunnar Solskjaer because he and his board are the problem. That's what it is. Get your comments in below. Let me know what you think. But that's where I'm at. Everything everybody's saying is true. The tactics are bad. The players are bad. The board are bad. But we've got to find a solution because it's going to get worse. Whatever you do over this international break, don't stop watching the United Stand. Don't stop getting involved on social media. Don't sit there and say, I've had enough of this club, I'm not interested anymore. Because that's what they want. They've got the money. They want you to be apathetic. The next thing's going to be Ollie's £300 million January transfer window war chest. That won't solve the problem because it's still the same crap people saying we don't want Bruno Fernandes, let's stick with what we've got. Let's sell Lukaku and Sanchez and let's not get anybody in. They're inept. They're absolutely inept and we've got to keep this vocal thing up. And I don't care what your vocal thing is, whether you're passionately Ollie in, whether you love the Glazers, whether you love the players, whether you dislike them all. As long as you're vocal, we've got to keep the message up there. You've got to stay vocal. You've got to keep this because where we are as a football club on the year that Liverpool are going to win the league is disgraceful. We have got to do more. And for me, that director of football thing is what we need. But they'll probably do one and get Rio. Because Ollie's a puppet. He is a puppet at the moment. He is saying everything to protect those people above him. He's in a horrible situation, but he's a puppet. We don't need another one. We don't need a Patrice Evra there dancing about doing social media stuff as a director of football. We need a director of football who's got nothing to do with this club and actually has got experience and is given the job that's required. Get Woodward off doing bloody biscuit deals. Get Ole Gunnar Solskjaer on that bloody coaching thing, accountable for what he's doing, and get a director of football with power into that football club. And let's get this football club back to where it needs to be. Thanks for watching. Smash a like on the video. Call in tonight at 8 o'clock. Going to be very interesting.